The full moon in Taurus on Wednesday, November 5th, captures the groundbreaking Mars Uranus opposition, encouraging you to transform chaos into balance, stability, and connection. Let's take a closer look and find out what it means for you. My name is Anastasia. I am a traditional Western astrologer specializing in consultations, teaching courses, creating products that capture astrology. If you are new here, welcome to my channel. I hope you stick around for a while. And if you've been here and you enjoy my work, if you've been coming back, please show your support by leaving me a like, a comment, subscribing, pressing the notification bell. Watch more of my content. All of that really helps the YouTube algorithm. And you can also say thank you by buying me a tea, a coffee, sending me a tip, sending me some love. I appreciate every single one of you who does that. Before we dive in, if you'd like a personal consultation, visit my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. To book a reading, I recommend starting with a natal chart reading. If you've done that, you can graduate onto a solar return, best done around your birthday or year ahead, which are more predictive. Relationship readings are there. You can also ask for help picking the best date, the best moment for your important events, such as a wedding, engagement, business, things like that. And I also do astrocartography, which helps you figure out the best place in the world for you to move to. Additionally, I am launching my level 2 course, Predictive Astrology, Map of Your Future, in March 2026. This will help you learn to forecast with the use of astrology, solar returns, annual perfections, and transits to be able to understand cycles and figure out how to navigate life with a secret advantage, being able to predict the future, being able to avoid the challenges and maximize the opportune times in your life. So register and join us. On my website, as mentioned, you can also find a variety of products I create. This is the 2026 planner, filled with insights about astrology, predictions for each month, breakdowns of each lunation. There are lots of space to set your intentions, write your to-do list, and things like that. I even included, as in the previous years, there are good dates, challenging dates, lucky dates, things that you can use to maximize your life. And last thing, on my website, you can also find a variety of candles and oils. I'd love to highlight my Venus in Taurus for anyone looking for love. Anyone interested in creating stability and manifesting abundance in their life. Venus in Taurus is very magnetic and really good at attracting whatever she desires. So if you're seeking to improve your romantic life, definitely check it out. Recommend this especially for people born with their Venus in Scorpio, Aries, or Virgo, signs of detriment and fall. If your natal Venus is retrograde, and if it's making aspects to Saturn, or if it's placed in the 6th, 8th, or 12th houses. And exalted moon is moon in Taurus, so similar energy to this lunation that we're having, except more stable and also really good at manifesting. Thank you for listening. All of the announcements out of the way. So today we're talking about the full moon in Taurus on Wednesday, November 5th. It occurs at 8:19 a.m. Eastern, so adjust for your time zone. And it happens at 13 degrees, 22 minutes Taurus. So you're going to feel it the most if you have planets such as your Sun, Moon, Venus, Mars, angles such as your ascendant, descendant, midheaven, IC, your nodes, important points between 10 and 16 degrees of the fixed signs. And those are Taurus, Scorpio, Leo, and Aquarius. So when you're looking at your chart, you're looking at the planets, see the numbers, right? It will tell you like, the moon in Aquarius, 12 degrees, and then you will know that this is activating an important point in your chart. And if you ever wanted to discuss it, I do readings so we can discuss it in a personal consultation. The full moon represents the moment of ripening. It's the moment the flower blooms and it is ready, right? The flower is sort of at its full capacity. So the full moon always holds within the energy of tension, and within that tension, there is potential for transformation and growth and completion of a chapter, right? Versus the new moon, we're planting the seed. By the time we get to the full moon, we are ready to celebrate it, absorb it, or move on, right? So there is a sense of tension between the sun in Scorpio, the sun in like intense, everything dies, life is full of struggle and emotional drama, Scorpio, and the moon in this sign of its exaltation, Taurus. This is actually really beautiful, the fact that the moon is in her not domicile, but the sign of exaltation. The moon really likes Taurus because the moon likes stability. The moon wants to chill and feel comfortable, and Taurus is the master of chill, right? It has the best snacks, it has the softest and coziest and highest quality blankets, so the moon really loves being here. And so naturally, you know, the energy of this new moon this full moon, is connected to like, how can we create balance in our life? How can we create more of those moments to savor and enjoy? And what can we celebrate already versus where do we need to make adjustments? The energy, so the full moon completes the chapter that got started in April 27th, 2025, when we had a new moon in Taurus. Take a look back, and if you remember what was going on for you, let me know down there. And it also, so it completes that chapter. It represents, you know, Taurus is always connected to material abundance. So you're maybe looking at your money, you're maybe looking at your real estate, you may be looking at your relationships and trying to figure out how to create more stability there. And so while Scorpio season is urging us to connect with intense feelings, Taurus season is reminding us to get embodied and to connect with our body and to tend to our body and basically establish this sort of connection that if you treat yourself well, if you take a break, if you rest, if you smell the flowers, then life can be beautiful and potent. So this need for stability comes out of a crisis, because right on the verge, on the eve of this full moon, we have Mars opposite Uranus. Mars enters Sagittarius and opposes Uranus. And there may be some drama that is leading us into the full moon. There may be some friction, right? Some kind of conflicts, outbursts, anger coming out. There may be some type of sense of restlessness where you're trying to break away from the old and trying to jump into something new. And this full moon will remind you to take it slow, because slow is smooth, smooth is fast. As I have learned recently. So there is a need to move slowly, and there's a need to like take things slowly. What is lovely is the full moon is exalted in Taurus, right? Because the moon is exalted in Taurus. So we have this stability, this sort of ability to be immovable in face of pressure and not succumb to pressure. And like, you know, it's not, the moon in Taurus is not gonna follow everyone and jump into a cold pool if the moon in Taurus doesn't want it, right? The moon in Taurus wants comfort. It's not gonna go and do crazy things. So there's the stability there. And there's also the ruler of the full moon is Venus in Libra. So we also have Venus in her domicile, which also wants to create cooperation and balance and connection. So we have this kind of like nice moment that reminds us that beauty and peace is possible even in the midst of chaos and difficulty. And so something might set you off ahead of the full moon, but I think the full moon itself is going to be a lovely opportunity to take it slow. We're going to take a look at the 12 rising signs. I recommend listening for your rising if you know it. If you don't, listen to your sun or moon signs. As always, for personal advice that is most accurate to you, book a reading on my website to discuss your natal chart, your year coming up, to get ready for an important event, to figure things out that you're struggling with, and join my course, Predictive Astrology course, Learn to Forecast Your Future. It begins in March 2026. I do recommend that for people who know the basics of astrology, things like planets, signs, aspects, and houses. If you don't and still want to join, email me at info@anastasia.astrology.com and I can send you recommended readings so you can prepare. So let's start with Aries rising. If you are an Aries rising, there's a full moon in your second house. It completes the chapter started in late April with a new moon in Taurus in your second house. And this is all about finances, resources, and values. And so this could mark a moment where there's a shift in your financial life. Maybe you start a new job. Maybe you finish a job. Maybe you finish paying off a debt. Maybe you take on a loan. Maybe you're going, to school and you're applying for a student loan. And so there is some kind of shift in your finances. Mars in your 9th house opposes Uranus in the 3rd. So definitely some type of restlessness in your everyday life and maybe desire to go further and reach higher, right? Like with Mars in the 9th, you're maybe thinking of traveling or studying or just opening yourself up to new ideas. And so the full moon in the 2nd is shining light on your resources and finances. And basically it's asking you to get things in order. The ruler of the full moon is Venus in the 7th. And so you may be driven by relationships and partnerships. And so maybe the need to make your finances organized and your priorities more organized. Maybe they're tied to what's happening in your romantic life. Like, let's say you're getting married, right? And you need to get things organized so you can enter the marriage with maybe like debt-free or something like that. Or you're thinking maybe you're negotiating a business deal or you're negotiating some kind of agreement, right? Like Venus in the 7th wants to have beautiful relationships. And so the full moon in the 2nd is an opportunity to like settle old debts and figure out your priorities, as well as it's a chance to get really clear on what you want and what is important to you as you enter an agreement. It doesn't have to be romantic, it doesn't have to be business. It could even be an agreement with a friend that you will be helping with like the care of their parent. Let's say you like agreed to help drive them to the hospital, but like what's the actual agreement, right? What if you can't do it? What's the backup plan and things like that? So definitely a chance of financial changes, just getting some kind of payments, rewards, changes in your earnings, changes in your job, but could also be a little bit more like spiritually driven. Share how this resonates. If you're seeking more, visit my website to book a reading or register for my predictive astrology course. Begins in March 2026. Don't miss out. If you are a Taurus rising, there's a full moon in your 1st house. So your house of identity, you, embodied you and the soul, right? Your personality, your goals and identity. This is a completion of the chapter that got started in late April. So what was happening in your life? Maybe you started studying something. Maybe you began a workout regimen. Maybe you've began sort of rebranding or, thinking of like launching a business. So the full moon can very much be a completion of that and a celebration of your accomplishment, especially with the ruler being Venus in the 6th. So Venus directs you towards fulfillment in your job, and she directs you towards helping other people and also being happy within your body, right? So it's very much, how has your sense of self changed? How can you choose better habits, better routines? How can you present yourself with more confidence? And generally, like, what can you do to be more truthful to yourself? There may be a bit of friction when it comes to finances and your agreements with other people. Maybe professionally, maybe there's a sense that you're not quite happy with your payments, right, with your salary, because Mars in your 8th house opposes Uranus in your 2nd house at the time, right before the full moon. But then there is a trine to Pluto in the 10th, so I think you're figuring out solutions, right? And you can maybe find a better job or figure out sort of, there's like professional breakthroughs that may come through with this full moon. So yeah, it's a really personal one. It's a personal full moon, and it has its roots, it's connected to April 2025. So take a look back at that full moon and share how this resonates. For more, as always, book a reading on my website and register for my upcoming predictive astrology course. It starts in March 2026. If you are a Gemini rising, we have a full moon in your 12th house, completing the chapter started in April. 2025 with a new moon in your 12th house. 12th house is the realm of blind spots, self-defeating tendencies, bad habits, isolation, and mental health. So here you're focusing, I think, very much on releasing things that do not serve you. The ruler is Venus in the 5th, and so Venus in the 5th is generally quite beautiful, but it might suggest that you are reviewing your maybe indulgent habits and you're committing to taking better care of your health through making adjustments, like quitting drinking for a year, right? Or starting to say no to certain things, because Venus in the 5th house is also very focused on like play and fun and creativity. There might also be a sense of like letting go of fears, like if something you enjoy, people might judge. The full moon in Taurus will encourage you to not care as much, because it's, what is good for you. Other people don't need to approve of it because other people are confused themselves, right? Don't waste your time thinking about other people. There's also, with Venus in the 5th, questions around relationships may come up, especially with Mars in the 7th opposite Uranus in your first, a day before the full moon. Like, what are your self-defeating tendencies in relationships? Do you tend to say yes? Do you tend to hide your anger and frustration? Do you tend to be the most generous person even when others don't reciprocate? So letting go of something to create more stability, to create more balance and connection, because sometimes you have to go into this uncomfortable place and address the frustration in order to create more balance, beauty, and connection, right? Which is the theme of this full moon. Definitely reflect on April 27th, 2025 to see what the new moon could have brought into your life. And if you're seeking more guidance, book a reading on my website, register for my Predictive Astrology Map of Your Future course to learn how to forecast with the use of annual perfections, solar returns, and transits. For my beautiful Cancer rising, there's a full moon in your 11th house, the domain of community, friendships, networks, associations, your hopes and dreams, your social media, right? Something is changing here. And look back at April 27th when we had a new moon in Taurus in the same sector, because something could have started back then that is now coming full circle. Like, you began volunteering at a local school and now you get a permanent position, maybe you start working there. You began a group project with your friends to maybe start a podcast, and now you launch this podcast. The ruler is Venus in the 4th, your house of home family, your hometown. So maybe there is a sense of something you're working on in your community that is connected to benefiting your hometown and maybe making things a little better. You may be busy problem solving at the time of this full moon, because on just the day before, on November 4th, we have a rather frustrating Mars Uranus opposition, and it's activating your 6th and 12th houses. So there may be some type of irritating energy, something breaking down, something is not quite working, and then you may be the person that has solutions. And that's sort of like, I would urge you to speak up and express your ideas, because you might be the one that actually is able to solve the problem. But there is this sense with this full moon, it kind of reminds you, I think, to know your worth, to know that you deserve good relationships, you deserve happy friendships, you deserve the place within community that is uplifted and happy and stable. And so the full moon may also encourage you to release any friendships that don't feel comfortable and soothing and supportive. I also wonder if there is an opportunity to work with women with this full moon and connect with women and build stronger relationships with women in your community. Do share for more, book a reading on my website, and register for my upcoming Predictive Astrology course. Also, highly recommend this exalted moon candle or moon in Cancer to create stability in your life. If you are a lovely Leo rising, the full moon is activating your sector of career, status, reputation, and public life as it brings completion to the chapter started in late April. So this is about career, but this is also about what are you known for in the outside world when you step outside of your house. What do people know about you? So the full moon can bring a change, right? It can bring a change in status, getting a new position, a financial transformation, getting a raise. It can be the time you decide to quit your job and maybe try something else. There is a bit of disruptive energy right before the full moon as Mars in your 5th house opposes Uranus in the 11th. So Uranus in the 11th has this very rebellious energy in terms of your role in the community. It wants you to show up as a Promethean character, a change maker, an innovator, a revolutionary, maybe somebody who shakes things up and tells people, look over here, we're not addressing this big issue, we need to address it. So there may be some type of revelations around the time of this full moon that highlight your desire to be more involved with the community. And the ruler of the full moon is Venus in your 3rd house. So she reminds you of your skills, your gifts, your talents. She might also encourage you to start a business and to take ownership of what you know and how you present yourself in the world. New alliances are possible at this time, even new education opportunities, because 3rd house represents exams. And maybe changes in your everyday life, changes in terms of, going to work a little less, working from home a little more if that's what you want, or maybe the opposite. Maybe you're starting to go to work a lot more because you're seeking to recommend yourself more. One thing is for sure, the goal is to create more peace in your professional sector and to use your voice, your knowledge, your skills in a more constructive way. Highly recommend my Exalted Moon candle. This is Moon in Taurus, and it falls in your 10th house of career, helping manifest and create abundance there. Find it on my website. On there, you can also book a reading, register for my upcoming predictive course, and pick up my 2026 planner. If you are a Virgo rising, there's a full moon in your 9th house. So here we see completion, change, transformation in the sector of education, travel, writing, publishing, legal matters coming full circle, and also philosophical shifts, right? Take a look back at late April 2025 when we had a new moon in Taurus. Maybe you took a course and now you're graduating. Maybe you applied for an LLC or you applied for a visa. Maybe you began writing something and now you wrap it up and you finish it. Maybe you've been working on a project that you're now ready to publish. The ruler of this full moon is Venus in your 2nd house. So your goal right now is you're very financially mindful, financially minded around the time of this full moon. You're thinking about improving your finances. There might also be, with Venus in the 2nd, there may be some kind of extra income, right? There may be a little bit of money that is extra. And so the full moon in the 9th might also encourage you to travel and to be like, yes, life is difficult and there are a lot of things going on at work or at home with Mars in the 4th opposing Uranus in the 10th, right, around the full moon. But to hell with it. I'm going to go on a trip because I need it. I need to rest. I need to recharge. And then I can be a better partner, a better parent, a better employee. So the full moon in the 9th reminds you that it's good to take care of yourself. And it's also urging you, I think, to celebrate your desires and to give yourself a chance to enjoy life a little bit more. And so a shift, like I said, there may be a sense that a shift is needed in your attitude and your outlook on the world. Share how this resonates, and if you're seeking more, book a reading on my website, register for my upcoming predictive astrology course, and pick up my lovely goodies, Exalted Moon or Planner, 2026 Planner. My beautiful Libra risings, there's a full moon in your 8th house, the domain of debts, loans, taxes, partners' money, and shared resources, as well as mysteries and sudden events and transformations, also death and rebirth. But basically, it's the house of like energetic, financial, and different kinds of exchanges we have with other people. We are completing the cycle started in late April, so reflect on that, what was happening in your life. Financially, what was happening in your relationships with other people? Have you been negotiating any agreements, right? This full moon is an interesting one because it's ruled by Venus in your 1st. So Venus in the 1st is urging you to be this example of, I straightened my back, to be this example of the fair and the just and the balanced person as you negotiate with other people. Simultaneously, as it's also urging you to focus on what you truly want. Because Venus in the 1st she's your chart ruler. Her being in the 1st suggests that she's like right there, helping you be clear on what you want, what you seek, what you desire. So the full moon in the 8th will be a great opportunity to get to a negotiating table with someone. And that could be your parent, your spouse, your boss, right? Even your neighbor that is playing loud music in the evening, whatever it might be, right? Maybe it's your cleaning lady. And there is this chance to sort of talk it out and create more balance, come to an agreement, right? Maybe you and your partner are discussing how to spend money and you're sort of figuring things out. Paying off debts, there may be a change in your partner's resources that requires you to discuss things. There may be, some kind of financial procedure, financial protocol that you need to take care. Even talking to your financial advisor, like talking to your accountant at work about your 401k or something like that, discussing mortgage, anything financial is quite likely here. Share how this resonates. If you're seeking more guidance, visit my website to book a personal reading and ask me any questions your heart desires. You can also register for my upcoming predictive astrology course and pick up my 2026 planner. If you are a Scorpio rising, the full moon is highlighting your 7th house of relationships, partnerships, contracts, and agreements. It is all about the way you come and relate with other people. And it's also about other people in your life. And so the full moon represents a culmination, a completion, a change of the chapter that likely got started in late April when we had a new moon in Taurus. And so relationship transformations could be romantic, right? You begin dating someone you've been friends with, you commit to a relationship, you get engaged, you move in together, you get married, you get pregnant, right? A lot of sort of important steps. A change might be affecting your partner's life. What's interesting is right before the full moon, we have Mars in your 2nd house opposed Uranus in the 8th. Uranus in the 8th can be like a shakeup to your finances that maybe comes from a partner's finances, right? Like a partner getting fired or a partner finding out that they have a debt or a partner having some kind of big bill to pay. Maybe they win a lottery. Maybe it's a positive change, right? I don't know. But there are potentially maybe some kind of shifts in terms of the resources that you and your partner bring to the table. So the full moon could be connected to like financial readjustment or the partner experiencing maybe some type of shift in their life. The ruler is Venus in your 12th house, which is interesting because Venus ruling it from the 12th house will encourage you to discuss things that you might normally choose to sweep under the table, right? 12th house is the place of our self-defeating tendencies. And as a Scorpio rising, you are naturally intuitive and, aware of ups and downs of life. But like in your relationships, perhaps you tend to try to keep things really peaceful and maybe not be direct. And so this full moon also feels to me like, what do you need to discuss? What do you need to address in regards to money, in regards to values and priorities to create more stability in your relationship. And it's like the sun is in Scorpio in your first house, the moon is in Taurus in the seventh, and it's almost like, how can you unite the darkness of life with your desire for peaceful relationships, and how can you address things that are uncomfortable to actually create more peace? La 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 la. I hope it makes sense. If you're seeking more guidance, book a reading on my website, register for my upcoming predictive astrology course, and pick up my exalted moon candle. This is Moon in Taurus in your 7th house of relationships. Great for manifestation, comfort, ease, and abundance. If you are a beautiful Sagittarius rising, there's a full moon in your 6th house. So we're completing the chapter started in late April with a new moon in Taurus in your 6th. And here the change is connected to your work. So maybe you're closing a professional chapter, wrapping up a project, or celebrating an achievement, maybe getting a reward or some kind of recognition. There's also potential changes in your health sector if you're getting over a health issue, or you're getting some kind of surgery for the health situation you've been dealing with. It's also a problem-solving house. So if you've been working on some kind of personal project, like a home renovation project, that can be highlighted as well. Any kind of problem-solving, really. The day before the full moon, Mars in your 1st house opposes Uranus in the 7th. So there may be some breakthroughs in relationships, some shakeups, some important developments in your romantic life that are highlighted. And so the full moon in the 6th it's an interesting one, because it's like it's calling you to discuss and address maybe pretty mundane things that maybe feel boring, right? Like maybe it's the opportunity to talk about who does the dishes, or who takes care of the laundry, or who buys toilet paper, right? There may be these kind of mundane things that you don't discuss, but something is like, it's important to address these sort of everyday life concerns. So the full moon shines light on all of those things. The ruler is Venus in the 11th, and with Venus in the 11th, you're focusing on your community, your larger goals, your maybe future dreams. But again, the full moon says that, like, before you go out there, before you go on stage and start performing, you better make sure your belly is doing well, right? You better make sure you drank a lot of water and got a lot of sleep and paid your bills and you're not worried about anything. So the full moon here is very much an opportunity to kind of connect with your everyday life and maybe even change some of your health habits, change some of your work protocols, and create more peace, balance, and stability, right? Even if things feel chaotic, it is your time to prioritize you. Speaking of prioritizing you, book a reading on my website to get professional astrologer's opinion on your chart, your year coming up, your relationship, and more. And you can also register for my predictive astrology course, which begins in March 2026. Join me and other astrology lovers. If you are a Capricorn rising, there's a full moon in your 5th house, the sector of your creative energy, your children, your romance, romantic partners, your fun, your pleasure, your sexuality, right? Your sex life. So here you're experiencing a transformation and a change, and it could be connected to the new moon in Taurus in April 2025. What got started in your life? Maybe you started dating someone and now you make the relationship official. Maybe you started trying to get pregnant and now you do. Maybe you've been working on launching a creative project, business, an art exhibition, anything that is joyful, right? The full moon in the 5th is telling you, like, yes, you're very hardworking and you're committed and you're ambitious, but that shouldn't contradict the enjoyment of life, right? Like, you can still be hardworking, but do work that is fun and creative and inspired, especially with the ruler being Venus in your 10th house. She's also highlighting this need to take pleasure in what you do. And so pleasure may come from being a parent, it may come from doing creative work, it may come from even like developing a relationship or a creative partnership. But there is definitely a need to create more abundance. Right before the full moon, and the energy is still pretty much active at the time of the full moon, we have Mars in your 12th opposite Uranus in the 6th. So there might also be some frustrations in your everyday work life. So the desire for more pleasure may come out of this friction with colleagues or tension that you're maybe experiencing in your professional relationship. So take this opportunity to take a break, to tend to yourself, and to ask yourself, what is fun? What do I want in my romantic relationship, in my creative life, in my sex life, right? Things like that. Take care of you, Capricorn rising. And for more, book a reading on my website, register for my predictive astrology course, and pick up my lovely creation. Exalted Moon is beautiful for creating abundance and manifesting your dreams. If you are the beautiful Aquarius rising, there's a full moon in your 4th house, completing the cycle that got started in late April and bringing change to your sector of home, family, real estate, living situation. This could be a chance to move, with the ruler being Venus in the 9th, going to another country, going to a different state, moving to a different location, right? It could be about maybe some kind of wrapping up like a legal situation that involves property and real estate. There could also be a change in the life of a parent. A change in the life of the child as well, right? We have Mars in your 11th house opposite Uranus in the 5th. So some kind of friction between your romantic life, your creative passions, and your children, and what you're trying to accomplish in the outside world. Certain like balancing is required at the time of the full moon. But it's urging you, right? Like when you're in Aquarius rising, you're naturally very like rational and very curious and very intellectual. Like you tend to think about things very deeply. But your home, with your 4th house being Taurus, is meant to be this place of like stability, comfort, and security for you. And so if things get disrupted right around the full moon, if something feels uncomfortable, the full moon will encourage you to like bring it back to what comfort is, right? To wrap yourself in a blanket, to get like, even if your home is currently a mess because there is renovation there, like get yourself a hotel room, right? Like get away, take a moment to kind of reconnect with yourself and create more peace and security. And it could also be about maybe having some conversations with family members, maybe setting some boundaries, right? Like figuring out your beliefs with Venus in the 9th, being like clear, this is what I believe, this is what you believe, this is where we come together, and this is how we can agree. If you're seeking more guidance, book a reading on my website, register for my predictive astrology course, and pick up any of my lovely creations like my 2026 planner. Last but not least, the lovely Pisces rising. There's a full moon in your 3rd house. We are completing the chapter started in April 2025 with a new moon in your 3rd house. So the changes here involve your everyday life. There may be a shift in your schedule, maybe a shift in the route you take to work. Maybe you're completing a course of study and taking some kind of exam. Maybe you're changing your life and starting a business, right? The full moon in Taurus wants to create stability. And it will be from the inside in your brain and your thoughts, right? The full moon in the 3rd is going to be like, okay, what patterns of thought do you have that are actually destructive? And what is also potentially stopping you from creating abundance in your life? Because the ruler is Venus in the 8th. And maybe the thinking is also connected to like money and, you know, figuring out your pension, retirement, taxes, debts, and things like that. And so the full moon in the 3rd can also be about like these like practical steps necessary to reach your financial goals. Maybe you need to talk to this person, start this account, connect to this person, start a retirement account, right? Like what is the What is the A to Z step-by-step route that you need to take? Around the time of the full moon, we have Mars in your 10th house opposed Uranus in the 4th. And so your professional life contradicts some chaos and some maybe desire for change in your home life, in your house, in your family, relationship with your family. So maybe again, the full moon in the 3rd is like, okay, the world is confusing and things fall apart, but like, what can you control? What can you control? What can you, like, what kind of routines do you need to have? How can you make a plan and then follow along and figure out a better way of kind of reaching your goals, right? What is there, like, starting with your thoughts that you can maybe change to do better to your immediate environment, right? Like, what do you need to declutter, get rid of, reorganize? Maybe it's like literally about opening some space for yourself in your schedule, in your everyday life, in your environment to feel better. So take good care of yourself, since 3rd house is very much daily life. Figure out some good things to do around this time to tend to your body, your heart, and your soul. And if you're seeking more guidance, book a reading on my website, register for my upcoming predictive astrology course. Highly recommend my Exalted Moon candle for peace and balance and abundance. And thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being here. Again, if you're new, watch more of my videos. If you've been here a while, if you keep coming back, thank you so much. Leave me a comment, subscribe, and I'll see you soon.